What's up guys, it's Aaronitmar, and today we are going to be talking about more potential Echo Fighters, but we're not going to talk about just a handful in this video. We are going to try to give every single character in Smash Ultimate an Echo Fighter. Now this isn't me saying that every character is going to get an Echo Fighter, or I think every character will get an Echo Fighter at some point. This video is more meant to be a thought experiment on if they were to add more Echo Fighters and they decided on certain characters, what would each character's Echo Fighter be? I just thought it would be fun to try to come up with some Echo Fighter for every character, or almost every character in the game, because, I don't know, I think Echo Fighters are really, really neat, and it's a shame that we don't have as many in the game. I just think they're fun.
Me too.
Okay, so basically what we're gonna do is go through the whole roster in order, starting with number 1, Mario. By the way, please subscribe, I'm almost at 200,000. Now, if you ask me, Mario and Dr. Mario, while they're considered separate characters, are close enough that you could call Dr. Mario Mario's Echo Fighter. Now, there are some Echo Fighters with different aspects to their movesets, like Chrom or Ken, but they're still considered an Echo Fighter, so I feel like Dr. Mario could fall under that category. Although, if you want to be technical, he's still his own character, so let's just say Shadow Mario. I mean, personally, I think it's Dr. Mario, but Shadow Mario could work as well. Donkey Kong can get Funky Kong. As far as their body goes, they're pretty much the exact same. Funky Kong just elects to wear more than a necktie, so easy enough there. And for Link, we have what is called the Hero Spirit, or the Hero Shade. This spirit appears to Link in Twilight Princess to teach him different techniques, and it's actually been confirmed that this is the Hero of Time. So it actually could literally be Link, and so because he is Link, he can use Link's moveset, and I think that would be a unique spin on an Echo Fighter that a lot of people probably did not think of. Samus has Dark Samus, so we can ignore that. Moving on to Yoshi. Yoshi's partner in almost all the games is pretty much always Birdo, and Birdo also has a great affinity with eggs, so I feel like a lot of the moveset could work perfectly well. Maybe instead of throwing the egg for the up B, Birdo could spit it out and maybe have a unique special move, I'm not sure. Kirby could have Waddle Dee. They have a similar body type, and honestly, they do function pretty similarly in some of the Kirby games, so an Echo Fighter of Kirby could work pretty well. Although he doesn't really have a mouth, so you can't really use an inhale and absorb an ability, so maybe he could have a spear throw or something. Honestly, Waddle Dee probably could just be his own character. Fox could really have any member of Team Star Fox here, but I chose Slippy because they're about the same size, and so while you'd have to adapt a couple different parts because, for example, Slippy doesn't have a tail, I think it would work out pretty well. Here's another example where the game doesn't classify them as Echo Fighters, but they are so close that they could be argued as Echo Fighters, so I just stuck Pichu and Pikachu next to each other. Luigi could of course have Gooigi, who was debuted in Luigi's Mansion 3. I've talked about that in a video before, but I think that would work even better than an alternate costume. The very first protagonist of the Mother series, Ninten, could easily be a Ness Echo Fighter. They have similar abilities, they have even a similar design, so it would very much work well. Of course, you could also just make him his own character if you really wanted to. Next up is Blood Falcon, who is literally the evil clone of Captain Falcon. It's basically a Samus and Dark Samus situation. They look super similar and their moveset would be the same, but they are literally meant to be good and evil versions of each other, so it made perfect sense. Jigglypuff can have Igglybuff. I really couldn't think of anything other than the pre-evolution because Jigglypuff just has a unique design and a unique moveset that really only Igglybuff would match. Peach, of course, has Princess Daisy, so we move on to Bowser, who could receive Dry Bowser. Now, I'd honestly prefer this as an alternate costume, but I think if you're gonna go with an Echo Fighter, Dry Bowser makes a lot of sense. If you're not happy about that, you can also have Dark Bowser from the Mario and Luigi series. That would work out just as well. Either of those I'd be totally content with. The Ice Climbers were another character that I struggled to actually give an Echo Fighter because so much of their moveset is original, like completely made up for Smash, because they don't have a ton of source material to pull from in their one Ice Climber game. So I really think that it would probably be one of the few characters that could not get an Echo Fighter at all. If you want to go outside the main series of games that they are from, then maybe the Baby Mario Brothers would work because they typically can use hammers. You can maybe change their icebergs to be shells or something, but honestly, I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch. Sheik could easily have Impa as an Echo Fighter, nothing much more to say there. Zelda could easily have Hilda. It's meant to be an alternate universe version of her, so it makes sense for her to have the same powers and abilities. And Falco could have peppy hair. Again, this is because they are more similar in stature and height and stuff than the other members of Team Star Fox, so it makes sense, although a lot of Falco's moves now are based on like the fact that he's a bird, so we may have a problem there, but you know, Echo Fighters kind of just ignore the rules sometimes. Marth, of course, has Lucina, and so we move on to Young Link. So Young Link's Echo Fighter could, of course, be Ravio. Just like Hilda, Ravio is an alternate version of Link from Low Rule rather than High Rule, and you could actually have fun because in the game, he sells the items, so you could reskin all of the different items, the bombs, the boomerang, to be based on either sort of a Low Rule color scheme or just the items that he sells you in the game. Ganondorf could have Demise, who is literally meant to be his original version, and now that Ganondorf uses his sword, all the better. Mewtwo was a pretty tough one to pin down. I saw a lot of people online talking about Gygus from the Earthbound series. There's even a cool moveset concept which shows how Mewtwo's moveset could be adapted for Gygus. I'm not sure how I feel about this, one, because I don't think that Gygus is technically canon, and two, I don't really love when franchises jump to have an Echo Fighter, so I included it because I really couldn't think of anything else, but the Pokemon are all so unique that a lot of them would struggle to have Echo Fighters. And we can't get the former Echo Fighter Roy, who now has his own Echo Fighter Chrom. Mr. Game & Watch could have Mrs. Game & Watch. I don't know, this is another one where he's so unique it would be hard to adapt to the moveset. But especially with Game & Watch being so basic, you're just changing the character model. The moveset would stay the same. And Mr. Game & Watch isn't even a character before Smash, so it's not like there's another character to base it on. So, I don't know, Mr., Mrs., it made some sense. What was once a skin in Project M could now be a full-on character because the beta artwork for Meta Knight has now been turned into a full-on character called Morpho Knight. And I kind of like the idea of that being an Echo Fighter. It sort of feels like Meta Knight's design has come full circle. Pit has Dark Pit, so we'll skip that and go to Zero Suit Samus, who, again, I struggled to find something for. All I was able to come up with is whatever is inside of the Dark Samus suit could be the Echo Fighter, and we could just have Dark Zero Suit Samus. Other than that, I couldn't really come up with anything. And likewise, Wario is actually the first one that I could not come up with anything for at all. Both his design and his size and his moveset, I just didn't feel like they would fit any other character. So if you have any input on what Wario's Echo Fighter could be, I'd love to hear it down in the comments. Snake could have Venom Snake as his Echo Fighter. The moveset and everything would pretty much be completely unchanged because they kind of do the same things in their games, but, this one has an eye patch. Ike's Echo Fighter could be the Black Knight, and something I actually didn't know until I made this video is that Ike's sword and the Black Knight sword were actually forged together and are meant to be brother swords, so it actually makes sense because they would effectively have the same options as far as their moveset goes. Pokemon Trainer, I actually had a little bit of trouble with. Not because of the trainers. You could easily swap out any generation's trainer. I mean, we have 8 generations now, so you could have one trainer for each generation if you wanted to. But I think that the Pokemon are just too unique to have Echoes. I looked at all the other starters, and none of them are just close enough to Squirtle, Ivysaur, or Charizard to be actual Echoes. Now, you could definitely switch up the typing and the Pokemon, but you'd be getting into territory where it's an all-new character, so I think that for Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard specifically, they just would not be able to have any kind of an Echo, but the trainer itself could easily be swapped out. Diddy Kong, of course, could have Dixie Kong. They are almost exactly the same in size, although Dixie does not have a tail, but we actually all thought that that was evidence that Dixie was going to be an Echo Fighter because he no longer uses his tail for his jab attack. Unfortunately, we were wrong, but I would still love to see this happen. Lucas can, of course, have the Masked Man, and you could even have some fun with this, giving him alternating costume slots, one where he actually looks like he does on screen as the Masked Man, and the other where he looks like he does underneath there, which, that gets into spoiler territory. Sonic could have Shadow, assuming that he's not an assist trophy, but he is, so I don't know how that would work. And King DDD could have Shadow DDD, another example of a character getting their dark version as an Echo Fighter. Next is Olimar, and honestly, I don't know why Alf is still just a costume. He was intended to be a clone, he was decloned and made a costume. Then they introduced a whole new term for clones, and Alf is still just a costume. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, so Alf and Olimar, they should be two halves of a coin, not the whole coin. Okay, that didn't make any sense, but you know what I'm saying. Lucario was surprisingly easy to come up with an Echo Fighter for because this new Pokemon from Gen 7 called Zorora is pretty much the exact same as Lucario in terms of design. They both stand on two legs, they both have sort of paw-like hands, they both have tails. They're very, very similar, and so you could definitely adapt Lucario's moveset to Zorora very easily. Rather than Aura Sphere, you could give Zorora Electro Ball and really just replace all of the Aura moves with electric effects instead, and maybe even get rid of the whole power-up Aura system that Lucario has. Kinda similar to how Lucina loses the Tipper, but Marth still has it. Rob was the next character that I could not come up with anything for because Rob, I think, is just so unique. I mean, he was literally a toy released for the NES that got turned into a Smash character. I just could not think of anything that could be an Echo Fighter. So again, if you think of something, please leave it in the comments. Toon Link could also have a clone of Ravio because interestingly, Ravio is kind of in the middle of Young Link and Toon Link's design. He's not exactly as realistic as Young Link is, but he's also not exactly as toony as Toon Link is, so he's kind of in the middle. So you could honestly say that Ravio could just be an Echo Fighter of both Young Link and Toon Link. Wolf's Echo Fighter could just be another member of Star Wolf, but I picked Pigma because I think it would be hilarious to see this giant pig fighting on Battlefield in Final Destiny. That would just be so funny to me. Villager's Echo Fighter could be any of the citizens or the villagers from any of the Animal Crossing games. In fact, you could do a full-on 8-character clone where each slot is a different character, sort of like Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings. Because as far as I know, everything that the main character villager can do, every other character can do as well, so it just makes sense to me. Mega Man can have Proto Man, who is literally meant to be like the beta version of Mega Man, so they could easily have the same moveset. In fact, they almost do. Wii Fit Trainer could have a Ring Fit Trainer, which is sort of like the successor to her game. From a fun exercise game on the Wii to a fun exercise game on the Switch, they're sort of in the same line of thinking, and they could potentially do exactly the same things. Rosalina, I just could not come up with anything for. Again, she's too unique, I feel, and her moveset was made specifically for her. So I just don't think anybody else could really match up with her. Little Mac's trainer Doc Lewis can finally take off that towel, break out of the sweats, and pull out some boxing gloves because it's his time to shine. I just couldn't think of anything for Greninja. He's a giant frog with his tongue as a scarf. I can't think of anything for it. Palutena can have Medusa as her Echo Fighter. They're similar in design as far as their proportions go, and they're both meant to be mythical beings, so they definitely could work out well together, I guess. Pac-Man can have Miss Pac-Man. Even though I know there's copyright issues regarding Miss Pac-Man, I just think it would work well. Robin can have Soren as his Echo Fighter, who is a mage from Ike's Fire Emblem games, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. As far as I know, they do perform very similar tasks in their individual games, although I'm sure they do have differences, but as far as an Echo Fighter goes, I think it would make sense. Shulks would of course be Rex because they can both wield the Monado, and so it makes sense, although I'm sure Rex would be his own character if they were going to put him in Smash. Bowser Jr. has the Koopalings with him, alright? He may as well just be one big Echo Fighter character just because there's 8 different characters on his slot, so there's no point in listing anything for him. Duck Hunt can have Banjo-Kazooie because they're basically the same thing. Yeah, who's laughing now? Ryu, of course, has Ken, although as far as I'm concerned, they are such drastically different characters that they really only put Ken as an Echo Fighter for the novelty. Cloud's Echo Fighter can, of course, be Zack Fair, who is one of his best friends and is also the reason he owns the Buster Sword because Zack passed it down to him. Corrin, I guess, could have Tiki. You would have to take some liberties because Tiki doesn't exactly do much of what Corrin could potentially do, but I mean, it's better than nothing, I guess. Bayonetta could of course have Jeanne as her Echo Fighter because she is literally one of her rivals in the Bayonetta games and even has a color scheme dedicated dedicated to her in the official Smash game. Inkling can have the male and female versions of the Octolings, meant to be the bad guys, but you know, we find some stuff out. But yeah, the Octolings would be perfect because they work almost exactly the same as the Inklings do. Ridley was a hard one to decide on, but I ended up going with Aerodactyls simply because they have the same tail. That was it. I couldn't think of anything or any character that would be appropriate on Ridley's moveset, so Aerodactyl, there you go, we got a fun Pokemon. Simon has Richter, so we can ignore them, and moving on, we have King K. Rool, and we're going to be jumping series again, and we're going to say that King Wart could be King K. Rool's Echo Fighter. Wart is the final boss of Super Mario Bros. 2, or if you're in Japan, Super Mario Bros. USA, and they really do have kind of a similar design, although the moveset for King K. Rool wouldn't make a lot of sense on Wart, but I just want Wart in the Mario games in the present. I mean, come on, put him in a new game. He hasn't been in a game since Mario 2. Look at him, he's so cool looking. Let's get him in a Mario game. Isabelle could honestly have any of the villagers, just like the actual villager character could have any of the villagers. That's that same word over and over again, but basically, Isabelle doesn't do anything that's exclusive to her, so any of the villagers could also do what she does, so they could potentially be an Echo Fighter for Isabelle as well. For Incineroar, I could not think of anything, so I just found a dude on the Pro Wrestling Famicom game, and I just put him there. I don't know. Like, any wrestler, I guess, could work, although you'd have to sort of figure out a way to make the fire attacks work, but, you know, this guy. Piranha Plant, I just couldn't think of anything. Again, it was a scenario where he's just too unique to his own design for any other character to really work. And for Joker, we could have Violet, a new character added to Persona 5 Royal. She's a part of the Phantom Thieves, and she could honestly work very well, although you may need to figure out a way to give her a different persona that also could work like Arsene, so I don't know about that, but that would be cool. I think it would be neat. And lastly, the final 3 DLC characters that are out at this point in time, I just could not think of anything for them. Obviously, you could probably include another couple of different protagonists from Dragon Quest over Hero, but at that point, what would be the difference between that character and another character? It would all just be one Hero character, so I think that would be kind of redundant. As for Banjo, I don't think anyone really could have the moveset that he has, and Kazooie, obviously, because they're just incredibly unique and based around them. And lastly, Terry, you could give anybody who's a human, I guess, the moveset of Terry, but if you're going for someone from Fatal Fury, it would be kind of inappropriate to give them Terry's moveset because typically they will all have their own unique movesets and unique spin on things, so really I don't think that you could have any kind of an Echo Fighter for Terry. And that is everyone in Smash so far. I got almost every character with an Echo Fighter. I really tried to find an Echo Fighter for every character, but I also wanted to sort of keep the principles that Echo Fighters have in the official release of Smash Ultimate, so I didn't want to get too crazy with it. I wanted to, only in rare cases, you know, for example, did I series jump, and I didn't want to give anybody a moveset that would be absolutely incorrect for them, so I did my best. I think I got a majority of them done, and I think I did an alright job, so please let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and of course, if you have any ideas for any other Echo Fighters, also leave those in the comments because, you know, I don't know everything, so I can definitely be not as accurate as I should be. But that's going to do it for this video, you guys. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Have an awesome day.